Welcome to Living a Full Life podcast. Join us as we explore health topics that encourage raising healthy children, living a healthy life, and living the best life possible. Now, here's your host.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Enrico Bolchacori, and welcome to another episode of Living a Full Life. We're continuing on with our discussion about additives and food dyes because of the feedback. These last couple episodes, if you listened in, we talked about toxins in our food and then into specifically dyes. And now we're going to dive right into food dyes specifically that are added to foods that are processed and their direct effects on the brain. So more of a neurological episode today on the science behind how it actually happens. A lot of the questions that are coming in are not hateful, but they're like, well, where's the proof that this stuff really does cause issues? We've got parents that are concerned and parents that are skeptical and parents that truly support this and are like, yes, I see it in my kids whenever they have this. So let's not persuade or convince anyone. Let's just get into the science behind this and how these chemicals, direct chemicals, affect neuromodular activity in the brain. We need to go through this and what's happening. So this episode is all about food additives and the neurodevelopmental effects on the brain. So in children mainly, but these effects can take effect on an adult brain as well. We brought up in the last podcast things like monosodium glutamate, like MSG, that's added, and how they can lead to lucid dreams and decreased brain activity, not decreased brain activity, altered brain activity and altered REM sleep in high doses. So that can affect anyone, an adult that weighs 300 pounds all the way down to kids that may weigh 60 pounds. So let's go into some more specifics about this and the specific colors that are out there, and talk about how they directly affect these things. Well, we need to understand the key word here is artificial. These are artificial substances that are added to food to enhance color, flavor, texture, and shelf life. Some of the most commonly used synthetic dyes in the USA are Red 40, also known as Allura Red, Yellow 5, Tartazine, Yellow 6, Sunset Yellow, Blue 1, Brilliant Blue, Blue 2, Indigo Carmine, and Green 3, Fast Green. These are dyes. They have also been used to dye material as well. That's why they have those names to it: Fast Green, Brilliant Blue, Allura Red. They're also used to dye sheet metal, plastics. They are used for other coloring agents as well, clothes. But in our food, they have been passed by the FDA to be okay in certain quantities in our food to give them color and vibrance. Some additives that are used more so to preserve food that may impact brain function include sodium benzoate, MSG, aspartame, high fructose corn syrup, and emulsifiers like phosphorylated or polysorbate 80 and carrageenan. So these are things I would say that are probably at the top of your list to look at once you read the side of the package. You'll see things like Red 40, Yellow 5, MSG, aspartame, high fructose corn syrup. Those are the common ones on the side of packaging. These should be avoided on all fronts. We should not be eating this stuff. They are used quite commonly everywhere, and it's maybe a little bit easier when we go through the grocery store to flip a package over and read it and be like, okay, we're not going to get this one, we got an alternative. It's a little bit different when you're out and about and you're taking the kids out for ice cream and they decide to choose Superman ice cream, and you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's probably all three of them right there. Allura Red, blue 5, and the green and the yellow are all there, Yellow 6. And you're like, oh man, maybe we shouldn't get that one, right? And maybe we should just default to vanilla or chocolate. Those are good decisions, and they're all around us. And these are the decisions we have to make. And unless we're aware of these things, we really don't do it. And I think it's because most of us are just not aware. When we download information and we process information with social media and all the choices that we have for information, we choose entertainment more than we do science. And that may be okay. Being entertained is okay. But sometimes a little bit of information can go a long way. And that's why this podcast is here, and many others like it in the health industry, is to help motivate parents and not influence parents, but motivate them and encourage them and be supportive of the healthy choices that they do want to make and be more decisive and educated on the decisions that they do make. So let's go behind the science a little bit. I think in the last two episodes, I brought up all these great facts, but I didn't really cite science or brain activity or anything like that. So we're going to dive more into science. And the research has shown that synthetic foods with dyes and additives can have measurable effects on brain function, particularly in children. And here are some of the studies I pulled from like the Lancet back in 2007 with hyperactivity and ADHD symptoms. This study was published in 2007. It was found that children who consumed artificial colors and sodium benzoate had increased hyperactivity and attention issues. You may see this in your kids as well with any artificial colors, especially red, blue, and the yellow, is when they have these, they'll change in activity. There'll be more mood swings, a bigger crash afterwards, and just not listening to instructions. That can happen there as well. We've also noticed cognitive impairment as well. And this is from Neurotherapeutics back in 2015 from a research article that indicates that certain food dyes like red 40 and yellow 5 can alter neurotransmitter function and cause oxidative stress in the brain. So these are from dyes that are doing direct effects in the brain. And I always lean back to children because it's our job to protect them, and their brains are growing, their bodies are growing. If this is doing that to their brain, it's also going to do it to your brain too. So these are things to maybe be aware of and consume in very low quantities. Behavioral issues. Just from the Journal of Pediatrics 10 years ago, found a significant correlation between artificial dye consumption and increased aggression, irritability, and mood swings in children. And then in the Frontiers of Neuroscience, just 4 or 5 years ago, highlighted that food dyes like blue 1 can cross the blood-brain barrier, potentially leading to neuroinflammation and disrupted neuronal communication. And that's based on neuroinflammation. And these are just from 5 well-established studies and peer-reviewed journals, the Lancet, Neurotherapeutics, the Journal of Pediatrics, that we're pulling this stuff from. It's all out there, and it's not only just in 2019, 2015, 2012. I could have pulled this stuff back 2001, 1996, 1987. This stuff goes back a long time, 30, 40 years in the literature, showing behavioral and mood disruptors and additives that we're adding to our food and additives in general. So there's a little bit of what's happening. We get the hyperactivity results from food dyes. We get cognitive impairment from these dyes, behavioral issues, and the constant neuroinflammation from them as the body tries to process this out of the system. So, how do these substances directly affect the brain? The neurotransmitter disruptions that we brought up are that certain dyes interfere with the dopamine and serotonin levels in the brain. These are your mood enhancers or mood downers that are usually held in balance in your brain for just general behavior and mood. Healthy levels of both keep you in a neutral state where happy things make you happy and angry things make you angry. But when they get skewed, we can be perpetually stated into an angry or depressive state or anxious state because of the disruption in these neurotransmitters. So these are crucial for mood, focus, and behavior. And if we start disrupting these neurotransmitters, well, anything can happen with behavior in the end of the day. They also cause oxidative stress and free radical damage in the body as well. Artificial dyes can increase oxidative stress, leading to neuronal damage and impaired cognitive function. And then by passing the blood-brain barrier, they have a direct effect on the brain itself. Some food dyes have even been shown to weaken the blood-brain barrier, allowing harmful substances to enter the brain long-term. So if we're giving these food colorings to our kids and we're damaging and weakening the blood-brain barrier, they're going to be more susceptible to other things passing the blood-brain barrier later in life. This is maybe sensitivities to medications, sensitivities to other additives that affect them. Sometimes some of these studies in Germany they've done following adults that had monosodium glutamate and did have those lucid dreams. They followed theirs and they believed that the blood-brain barrier was weakened in these individuals, allowing things like sodium to pass at a higher level, which caused not only lucid dreams, mood behavior, mood swings, irregular sleep, and even insomnia. And that was a theory. They're still working on that and doing more conclusive studies on that and following people over time, longitudinal studies, to see if, the weakening of the blood-brain barrier, this is a new frontier in science, the blood-brain barrier and its duration in life. It was thought to be a thing. It's just a barrier. It's there for your whole life to worry about it. But that thing in itself can change over time and be damaged over time. That wasn't a thought 50 years ago. So that's interesting where science is going with the blood-brain barrier. As a barrier, how does that force field and that shield from the brain and the body weaken over time? That's a new frontier for that as well. And then the gut-brain connection as well. Additives like emulsifiers can disrupt the gut microbiome, which play a key role in brain function and emotional regulation. Let's talk about the vagal vagus response from the brain to the gut. And it's really a sensor between the microbiome of the brain and the gut. New literature, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts, show that the mesenteric system, the gut system, has more neural activity than the brain itself. It's newer information. It's kind of earth-shattering information. When we thought the brain was the neural center of the entire human body, it's actually the gut that has more neural activity and more neurons than the brain itself. The mesenteric system has more. So the brain and mesenteric system have this connection. And really, the science is showing that it's a sensory system between the microbiome and how that biome is living minute to minute, second to second, and giving relays back to the brain saying, hey, we're doing okay, hey, we're not, hey, we're doing okay, hey, we're not. And those signals can be appetite increase, appetite decrease. It can be a sweet tooth craving, it can be a salt craving, it can be whatever the biome is craving or needing for their bacteria and viruses to survive, can actually connect back to the brain and give them information and be like, oh, we're hungry, oh, we need sugar. And when we really don't, it's really the biome in the gut, like candida overgrowth, saying, no, hey, we need the sugar. The bad guys are saying we need the sugar, and actually disrupt that communication between the brain and body. Crazy science that we're in right now to think about how the body is working on so many fronts. And it's not just systems. We've classified the human body as systems to make it very linear so that as humans, we can understand in a linear basis, oh, the circulatory system, oh, the cardiac system, oh, the liver, the pancreas, the stomach. And we've taken apart the human body into these different systems, but it doesn't actually work that way. The human body works in harmony every second, communicating on millions of fronts to make this whole thing work. And it's absolutely amazing. So when we throw in chemicals and additives, and the reason we have this podcast today is because it's by choice. We can choose not to put these chemicals into our body. We talked about toxins on 2 episodes ago and how you don't have a choice for all of them. Toxins come in physical, chemical, and emotional. And there's Wi-Fi, there's EMF, there's radiation, there's microwaves, there's all these other things that are happening in your environment, or there's pollution, there's air pollution, there's carbon monoxide, there's a whole bunch of things around you that you can't control. You can't go outside with a gas mask walking around. I guess you could, to try and filter all the air every minute of your life. You could, but there's pollution. It's the way it is. The off-gassing in your home, in a newer home with the laminate floors and the carpet and the new oak table that you bought, or the new furniture that you got. It's going to off-gas. And these are all additives, and these are all stimulants to the human body. Then there's environmental pollution, chemical pollution, corporate pollution, polluted water. We talked about this, and you can't filter all of that. You'd be a very weird. Well, you'd be the bubble boy, right? You'd be in a bubble. It doesn't work that way. So we don't have the choice to decrease Wi-Fi, maybe not have Wi-Fi in the home. We talked about those things. But the choices that you can make are easily like what you put in your mouth, for sure. If you keep your mouth closed and you don't put that in there, then that additive and those chemicals can't get into your body. Make sense? So we're talking about the things we can make choices on. So instead of bright colors, like we choose bland foods or real foods. Instead of having Fruit Loops for cereal, we're going to make, egg whites and some other stuff for cereal. We're going to have some bread and butter, or we're going to have some healthier choices. No food dyes in there. So the things that you can do to avoid these harmful additives is read labels. Number one, you see color in there, I would just avoid it. And I gave you the top 5 or 6. Red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, blue 2, green 3. Those are the ones. So there's 1 red, 2 yellows, 2 blues, and 1 green that you should probably avoid on all costs. You may see some other ones out there, but they're not labeled with a green and then number. The numbered ones are the ones that are approved by FDA that can be into food, and pretty much all of them are not good. They're additives that do disrupt neurotransmitters in the brain. So read the label. Number one thing you can do is just blindly buying things based on the packaging and how good it looks, not the best decision we can make. Choose whole foods. You go through the whole food section, you're going to avoid artificial dyes because an apple is an apple and an orange is an orange. They're minimally processed. If you buy organic, they're minimally sprayed, and they're probably less GMO and all that other stuff in there as well. Look for natural alternatives. Some companies use beet juice for red, turmeric for yellow and orange, spirulina for green, for color instead of synthetic dyes. So that's pretty cool. So if you see turmeric or beet juice or spirulina on the side of the thing, that's probably what they're using more so for the dye and the color and the presentation than the taste. Beet juice is mainly sugar. Sugar beets is where we get, in America, a lot of our processed sugar from. So beet juice is, a great red dye. Turmeric gives you a great yellow color. And those are probably used in more healthy foods to give the food the color that it needs to be. And support policy changes. We're in a time in the United States that's very exciting with a fresh look at policy, FDA, CDC, the foods, the drugs that are being forced onto people. And this is a great time to get involved and just write a letter or support a bill that you see going out there. I know Florida's passing something right now on chemicals being released from airplanes. A bill saying that, you can't actively do this without some type of warning or some type of foreshadowing or being transparent about this. That's something we can support about, or maybe you don't care about that, but support the ones that you do care about. There's going to be a lot of FDA changes coming up now. It's where you write a letter and you send it to your representative and say, hey, I support bill number, because these dyes have been in our food for decades, and it's time with the literature that we all know that these things should not be allowed in them anymore. And just writing that simple letter, and the representatives see this in an overwhelming support, and then hopefully they do their due diligence and support the people and vote in favor of what we support, right? So it's an exciting time. The European Union has stricter regulation on food dyes, and the US may follow suit with enough consumer demand if we are loud enough about this. And the Europeans were loud about this in the 90s, very loud about this. They stopped putting stuff in our food. They love food out there. The Mediterranean culture, the Spaniards, the Italians, the Greeks, the French, once they started figuring out that the things are being put in the food, they're like, forget it. The people actually stopped buying it. So Kraft, what are the big companies? Pepsi, all of them had to change their products to appease to the people because they were just not buying it. They were voting with their dollars. I don't see that happening in America. If it's on the shelf, Americans will grab it. So what we need to do is support policy changes on that as well. And then observational behavioral changes in your children. Keep an eye out for this. If you see random mood swings, especially, you hear the story, hey, we took the family to Orlando, we came back, but we've got some mood issues. And they joke, parents joke, like, how could you have mood issues when we're on the roller coasters at Universal Studios? And they're like, we just took you on this trip. How are you all upset? Well, it's a change in scenery. It's overstimulation, yes. But go back to the foods that they were probably eating. You probably didn't pack enough food for 3 days to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner each day. You went out. Think about those things. Well, where do we go? Do they probably have additives in there? Yes. Is that what's affecting my child? And being more aware and being like, oh man, maybe we do have a child that's sensitive to certain additives. Let's dig into that and help support them better by knowing which ones they are, avoiding them in the future, and helping them eat cleaner and more organic. Those are the strategies I use for my family, and those are strategies you should look into as well. If you have any more, thanks for the feedback, even the angry emails, like there's no literature behind this. Well, I just gave you like 6 or 7 published research studies on this stuff, and it's in peer-reviewed journals. So we are following up with this. And just because the FDA has allowed things, we talked about this on the last podcast, the allowable dose in food is a non-toxic dose. So just because it doesn't kill you once you eat it or cause immediate cancer, and the FDA approves it, doesn't mean it's good for you. It just means that it's not a toxic dose. The FDA's job is to protect the people from dying, not necessarily protect them from neurodevelopmental disorders, ADHD, and all this other stuff. That's not their job. They can't do it all. So they're there to immediate threats that could damage people's health in the immediate consumption of those foods and drinks. That's the FDA's and drugs as well, right? So that's their job there, to make sure that things don't kill people, like Vioxx. And then when Vioxx starts to kill people, they pull it off the shelf, right? So that's the FDA's job. And they're not I wouldn't put your family's health in the FDA's hands. It's your job to do that. And that's where this podcast came from. But your responses are great. They're great questions. They're out there saying, hey, where's the literature on that? Boom. I did a consumable podcast today on a little bit of the research to not overstimulate you. But keep in mind about that. Springtime's here. We got the Easter eggs coming out. We got the candies coming out. And you'll see the light pastel ones. Choose those. Those are probably not blue 40, red 40 and blue 1 and all those other ones that we talked about. They're probably turmeric or beet juice. And those are the ones to choose for your family this year. Stay well, stay healthy. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Have a great and healthy week.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Living a Full Life podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.